the NSE 20 share index today went up 5.4 points to settle at 3,192.04. Equity turnover was quite higher than the close of business yesterday at 171 million shares were traded against yesterday's 125 million. The commercial and services sector was the highest mover with 15.5 million shares, and that's about 81.4% of the day's traded volume. Kenya Airways, which has been one of the biggest watches by investors, touched a low of 34.25 and a high of 36 shillings. And Safaricom as well moved 15 million shares and closed the day at 4 shillings and 55. The shilling traded at about 75.26, a level it has seemed to maintain from the beginning of the week. And joining us in studio now to take us through the latest market news is Biko of the Hidalgo Group. Now, Biko, 5.4 points is nothing we have seen within the past 2 weeks. Today we saw large trading volumes from Safaricom. Who was pushing the market up today apart from Safaricom?
Other movers of the market apart from Safaricom, we're looking at Equity Bank, we're looking at Cooperative Bank. Basically, the finance segment has actually been the light in the market. And given that we're actually coming to a close in terms of you know, how people do business, people breaking up for the holiday, the finance segment has been like what's trying to push the stock market up, and we're hoping that by the end of this week things will actually be positive and maybe the market can close at 3,200.
Sasini has been on the limelight in the past couple of weeks. We're expecting to see the results tomorrow. It's been one of the more exciting stocks as the year comes to an end. Return on investment for investors is at about 48% as the year comes to a close. What do you expect in terms of the activity on that particular stock on the exchange tomorrow morning?
Sasini has actually adopted a very impressive strategy in terms of recovery, given the fact that the agricultural sector has really suffered a lot in terms of lack of funding, the post-election violence, lack of labor issues. The government promised to issue up a stimulus package to actually boost it, delayed rains. So Sasini has actually it's one of the best performing agricultural companies on the market, and many investors have been watching it and you know, seeing how it's diversified in terms of its products and services to actually sustain and give value to investors' money in it. So I'm looking at it in this way that tomorrow's results, we're looking at an impressive gainage of, say, more than 32% in terms of growth, in terms of the profit, in terms of bottom line, and hoping that the next coming quarter will be better for it once the government actually keeps its word and releases the stimulus package to boost the agricultural sector.
Now, Uchumi debenture results were put out today. They only raised 70 million shillings against 1.2 billion that they had expected to raise. There has been fear of investor fatigue, according to brokers I spoke to earlier. But at the press conference today, the MD, Jonathan Siano, predicted a 500 million profit by the end of the year, which means the fundamentals are right. What then will it take for Uchumi to turn around that situation? Uchumi
has goodwill among the Kenyan people. It's an indigenous company that many Kenyans want to see it survive. But I believe the strategy in terms of getting back on its feet and especially trying to get it back on the stock market is hard. Because when you look at the current economic fundamentals, many companies have good fundamentals, but the economy itself is weak. Not just Kenya only, but looking the world all over. So before people can actually, you know, like put money into recovering a particular homogeneous developed company, they have other issues on their mind. So I think the strategy that they're using is bad, is wrong, it's hard. And then investor fatigue. I mean, right now you're seeing that many people actually get into the bond market. It's more safe, it's more secure, and people want to safeguard their money before they can actually get into risky ventures. Uchumi is a risky venture because one, we're yet to see how its management style can it sustain itself beyond the current management leadership. Two, does it have the confidence of suppliers to sustain whatever products and services they have? Because many people have been saying that in as much as it has goodwill and we'd really like to see it come, it doesn't have the variety that other business competitors have.
You've touched on the bond market, and I just want to look at that very quickly. The bond markets today traded about 1.4 billion shillings. That's quite high, and the government has announced that it will float the Eurobond, which it had shelved for the past 2 years, next year. There's still a high domestic demand in the bond market. Is that the way to go, and what do you expect out of the sovereign bond, keeping in mind the global economy?
The government has a huge appetite for funds for development, we've seen that the current government has actually committed itself to, to actually ensure that our infrastructure in terms of roads, buildings, housing, education actually on par. And we can see that the current administration are really pushing hard to ensure that the 2030 vision goals are actually achieved, that the infrastructures that are needed to achieve this actually laid in place. However, the issue of having floating a Eurobond that's been put on hold for the last 2 years, I think it's hard because one, our local market in terms of bond appetite is still huge. We can see that it's one way to actually bring back investor confidence because investors right now don't have any interest in equities. So I'm thinking the government should have floated more local bonds first before actually going global. Secondly, the world economy is actually recovering, and you can see many world governments, America, Britain, pumping a lot of money into the financial systems to ensure that they're floating. So I think as the government plans to float it, I think more analysis and more research actually needs to be done to ensure that this will actually succeed and actually is taken up, or else we'll have eggs on our face.